Along with Live with Lakita, and we are super excited to be here right at this moment. I know you're probably looking at me like, whoa, she is all dressed up. And guess what? I want to talk to us a little bit about why we dress up, how we dress up, and could that be a part of our sickness, just a little bit. Today's topic, we're going to talk about the real addiction and the things that we love. Oftentimes, we are so dressed up to the nine, but it does not mean that we are well inside. And today we're going to be talking with someone that is just so fantastic at really helping us to look at the relationships that we have with addiction. Addiction to fear, addiction to procrastination, addiction to substance abuse, lies, and some of you have been addicted to even abuse. We're going to talk to someone who's going to give us insight about how to get free from being addicted to the things that we love. Stay tuned. This is Lakita Long with Live with Lakita, and we are back with another interesting episode and segment of our whole look at how we can better our health. Now, one of the things that I think is so important is that we look at health from a variety of different lenses, and it's not just the physiological side of health as we know. If you've been watching our show, you know that we talk about mental health, we talk about physical health, and today we're going to talk about what I call the real addiction and learning to deal with the things that we love. And I know you're probably wondering, what in the world is she wearing? Well, hey, I am all dressed up to the nines. Love this outfit like I just came back from the Grammys. But the truth of the matter is that is a little bit how we live our lives. We live our lives addicted to what we look like on the outside. And for many of us, it has harmed us because we are far from that on the inside. Today, I'm excited to be able to share with us a great friend of mine, someone who's going to bring us insight and a delightful treat around the topic of addiction and how we began to look at the things that we love. So let's welcome Miss Vernice Cooper. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So let me just say, you are a licensed marriage family therapist. You really, really push to want to empower women globally. And you want to get women just really thinking forward about all things concerning addiction. And you kind of have your own little way about how you think about addiction. So let's talk for a minute. What even got you involved in the whole concept? To be honest, I've heard people talk about addiction, but I've never heard people brilliantly talk about addiction like you've talked about it on a whole nother spectrum. So how did you get involved?
Well, I guess I can say I was raised with addiction. In fact, I consider myself the daughter of crack addiction.
That's deep. I mean, for many of us that grew up, we know what that whole thing looks like, having grown up in a family. I'm number 6 of 7 children, and the addiction was heavy and it was real. Keep going.
And so not just the daughter of crack addiction because my mom was an addict, but the community was addicted. And so I had to learn how to live and thrive in a community that was immersed in addiction.
Did you hear that? That's like a tweetable moment. What do you do when your community is addicted? Addicted community, hashtag, we got to get unaddicted. Do you understand me? So that's why we're here. Keep going.
Yeah, so I started to just learn for myself what that meant for me. And I don't think it was until maybe I was 9 or 10 years old that I realized what addiction looked like. And so in my family, it's very different. It's when you leave that glass of wine and you walk away and everyone's like, are you babysitting that? You ain't gonna drink it there? Why are you leaving the glass half full, right? It's those subtle things that I was starting to notice, right? And so I was intrigued from a very young age.
So let's talk a little bit about the intriguing, because 21 million Americans are intrigued about addiction as well. And we know that as much as they are intrigued, that there's a very small percentage that actually seek out treatment. So let's talk. You come from a family that was addicted, a community that's involved in addiction. Let's look at how does a disease of addiction evolve in a community? What does that really look like? And
So it evolves first with the person.
Okay.
And I always talk to people, just letting them know when I'm working with a patient who is addicted to a substance, I always talk to them about the relationship with addiction. What is your relationship? And they always say, what are you talking about? What do you mean relationship? And I say, are you dating? Tell me about your substance. Are you looking forward to seeing them later? Right? Like, tell me what's going on for you emotionally right now. And so from there, we kind of talk about, okay, if they're dating or they're not dating, okay, you don't feel like you're dating. So have you married? Are you married to your addiction? Are there more good times than bad?
That's just deep. That's just deep.
And so I talk about it more of a relationship because I really notice that people of color, when you come to them with just science, they don't care. They're trying to get from day to day, from task to task, right? They're in survival mode. So I have to talk about it a little bit more differently.
So let's talk a little bit more differently. So you talked about, are you dating? Are you married? So I've got this wonderful outfit on, and I did it on purpose, actually, because too often I think that as women, sometimes we're dating and being married to the addiction of looking good when everything else about us is not so great. We don't feel good physiologically, spiritually, emotionally. Our finances is in the trash, and no one seems to deal with it because we look good. So how do we break up with this addiction and the relationship, or is that a part of what makes us get a little bit crazy out of our head is because we have to break up with?
Absolutely. Like with every relationship, you have to assess the need for the breakup. Is there a need to break up with this image, with this posture that you have, right? Because here's the thing.
Did you hear that?
Here's the thing with addiction to a substance, you're talking about the physical and mental,
Capacity.
I'm talking about the physical and mental capacity. But when you talk about behavioral addictions, process addictions, such as looking good on the outside, this is an emotional addiction. It feeds an emotional need. It's very different.
So this is just really, so when we talk about this emotional addiction, and this is very important because it weighs heavily on how people move. I also think it's the reason why people do not lose the weight of the world is because of their addiction to the way people think about them, feel about them, and then this whole concept of self-worth. I mean, that was a big thing for me growing up, like really learning about my own self-worth, telling people no, and being made to feel like I'm not letting them down. Just the whole bit, right? So how do we process that in the times in which we are in to translate to better health? Like, how do I say, no, don't dress up, or am I saying don't dress up? What are we saying?
I think you still have to take another step back, right? And think about, even from your childhood, what were you valued for? Were you valued for your athleticism? Was it for your beauty? What were you valued for? And what are you valued for now? Not what do you value yourself for, not what do you think people value you for, but what do you think, how do you measure your worth, right? Before you can even start having that conversation. And usually when people come into treatment, I ask them 3 questions. Are you here to modify? That means to make an adjustment. Do you just want to change one little thing about you? Do you want to just stop using? Or do you want to stop pretending like you don't use? Right? Or the second question I asked, did you come here to recover? Recover means to return to a previous state, right? Do you want to be where you were when you were 20? Okay, I can help you get here, right? And people usually are there like, yes, I want to recover. I said, wait. There's one more question. Or did you come here to transform? And that means to become a new thing. And that takes a lot of work.
So is it that we are afraid of the work, or we are in denial? Because remember, we're talking about the real today, in addiction and the things that we love. We're only addicted to the things that we love, no matter how. I was addicted to candy, for example. I loved candy. I would go and buy $5 worth of candy, and I would empty out, like if I would buy now laters, I would empty out the now laters, empty out everything in the brown paper bag, so it looks like you're laughing. You probably did the same thing. And I just would have a field day, not knowing that I was feeding an addiction of sugar. And till this day, I have to watch it, right? Because it's a part of a habitual thing. So how do we rectify those habits? And do we ask those same 3 questions or what? How do we modify or change it?
Well, first, is it a problem from your perspective, right?
Well, with only 28 teeth, I think it might be a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, but it's kind of like asking someone who goes to Starbucks every day, is it a problem? And I don't answer the question for them. I ask them, well, is Starbucks a dealer? Is it your healer or is it your dealer? And you have to kind of think about that and process that with someone. What I really tell people is you have to get in the room with people you trust to be vulnerable so that you can have these conversations, because you're not just feeding an addiction, you're feeding an emotional need.
Now, you said something, and I just want to make sure that we highlight this, because I think that in our pre-show, we sort of talked a little bit about behavioral addiction and substance abuse disorder and the difference between the two. And I think it's befitting to talk about the behavioral addictions. We all have some form of these behavioral addictions, but what can we start? So give us a definition of that. And then what can we start doing to easily start making, I know she's looking like ain't nothing easy about this stuff, right? You can see I'm an addicted person, right? I have an addicted personality. So there's some things I just absolutely stay away from because I know I do have addictive personality. I never did drugs or alcohol because I saw what it did to my family. So that was kind of like, but I indulged in a whole lot of other things. I indulged in over studying, over trying to be an overachiever. That's an addiction. People pleasing is an addiction. So give us the backdrop on behavioral addictions and what that looks like.
Yeah, like I said before, it's really more connected to meeting an emotional need, but you also get that fix, that euphoria, right? Right? Even when you're talking about that candy or that cup of coffee.
Oh, it just feels so good.
The anticipation, right? The euphoria. The thing is, the real question you have to ask yourself is it causing any harm? Emotionally, behaviorally? Is it causing harm in interpersonal relationships? Things like that. So that assessment needs to happen. But when you're talking about solving it and just abstaining, I usually don't start with abstinence with people. I usually start talking about what does harm reduction look like? What does not picking up every candy every now or later look like? What does it look like to drive by Starbucks and keep going? What does it look like to not gossip every time you get some information? Because gossiping, things like that, especially with women, can be very addictive.
And it's funny you would even mention like gossiping, because I also see procrastination as an addiction. The constant delaying of something that you need to do, and fear as an addiction. You're just so fearful. You just get on my freaking nerves. Every time I turn around, you're just talking about something that I wish I could. I wish I was bold like you. I wish I was courageous like you. Stop it already. Be bold. Be courageous. Just be it. Oh my God. Like, get real with it, right? And we're just saying that because that is the real. That is the real. Addictions, as Vernice was talking about, it's a process. There's a modification to it. But let's talk for a second. How about the person that looks themselves in the mirror and think that there's nothing wrong with them? How do we deal with that person that may be watching and they think, I'm good, but you have no money, but you have a Gucci bag? Or you're driving a car, but you're always late on your rent. What levels of addiction are we dealing with that?
Yeah. See, this is high level addiction.
Right?
Because there's no introspection. They don't even see the problem, right? And you can't help that.
Whoa.
They have to help themselves. They have to arrive to knowing that there is a problem there.
Well, listen, I know we don't have much time, but I got to ask, but how does a person arrive when they don't have any introspection? That is like so deep to me.
Yeah, it's hard. They don't arrive without it, but it is accessible.
So let's piggyback, because I always like to make sure that the audience can hear the after-drop of the story. We started the story off, and you're going to be coming back, so I just want you to know that. So you're going to be coming back and providing us with some great information around addiction and some of your other passions that you have. Matter of fact, you have a book that's coming out. Tell us a little bit about that book, and then I'm going to have you to do something at the end. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, so I have a book coming out this spring called Vacate Victimville, and this book is about people who live in Victimville. And it's not a physical place, it's a place in your mind, right? And this is just really chronicling the lives of people who are going through grief, betrayal, right? There's some strained parental relationships in these short stories. There's some strained mother-daughter relationships in these short stories. There's addiction, right? And so I just want to use that book to really help people process and get that introspection that we're talking about.
Oh, so powerful. So make sure that you look up the book by my guest, Vernice Cooper. It will be out on every platform that you can see. Make sure you check it out, Amazon.com. Tell our audience, if you had to share something with them about getting with the real concerning addiction and the things you love, share with them one piece of information you've learned outside of being the therapist. What have you learned outside of that role?
Just in my own personal experience, I've learned and I've seen people heal and overcome addiction. It is possible, but you have to be willing to do the work. So get connected with Dr. Lakita Long and some of her platforms. Get connected with a therapist. Get connected with some positive people that are not afraid to tell you the truth so that you can start working in that truth.
And we're going to make sure, for those that are watching right now live with Lakita, we're going to make sure that you are able to connect with our guest, which is a licensed marriage family therapist specializing in addiction and a whole host of other things. And we'll make sure that we have that information for you. Once again, we thank you guys so very much for joining us here on Live with Lakita. I'm your host, Lakita, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next time.
Addiction is a biopsychosocial disorder characterized by repeated use of drugs or repetitive engagement in a behavior such as gambling, compulsive spending despite harm to self and others. Addiction means compulsive physiological need for and use of a habit-forming substance. General signs of addiction are lack of control, inability to stay away from a substance or behavior, decreased socialization, like abandoning commitments or ignoring relationships, ignoring risk factors, like sharing needles despite potential consequences. We typically form relationships with the things that we are addicted to, and therefore we need to acknowledge our need for help. For more information, please reach out to www.mhicnow.org.
Thank you so much for joining us on our episode on addictions and the relationships that we have with them. Please stay tuned for next week as we take a dive a little bit deeper into the topic, silent screams of molestation. You want to be there. Make sure you chime in and be there. We're looking forward to seeing you back here again on Live with Lakita.
To join the LDL Empowerment Group, please visit us at ldlempowermentgroup.com.
But mankind won't be destroyed.
Lord, and we're trusting in His holy word. Ooh,
Yes.
He never failed me yet, and I'm singing, oh, can't turn around. We come this far